On Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now it is the Year of the Dresden.
Year of the Dresden.
And we are finishing up our discussion on Full Moon.
Full Moon, not Full Fool.
Full Moon by Jim Butcher.
But
Hey, that's
if
the name
you
of the
listen
book.
to James Marsden say this, it's hard to tell if he's saying full or fool the entire book.
He sometimes says full, and you're like, is that full or is that full? And he was like,
And
I
when
don't
he's
know.
smacking his mouth eating and just cars are going by in the back, he's eating a peanut butter sandwich while he's reading this book. It's hard to tell if he's saying full or fool.
Who's to say? Not us.
He probably got a lot of money for this recording, and that's great for him.
I can't judge because you know what? I will do many things for a paycheck. Guys, join our Patreon. But Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I read the first 2 volumes of Hunter x Hunter by Yoshihiro Togashi.
Okay.
Really
Tell
good
me more.
manga, honestly. I was kind of surprised by it. It was actually recommended to me by a librarian when I was there, and they're like, I think you would like these. And so I was like, sure, I'll try them. And it's about a boy named Gon who he's like a country boy and he has a way with animals, and he learns that his father, who he has never known, is like this legendary hunter that hunts these like big animals, like because within this world there's like these really unique types of animals and creatures in the world. And so in order to become a hunter you have to go through a series of tests in order to prove your worthiness. And so Gon's like, you know what, I'm going to follow in my father's footsteps and become a hunter, which this is definitely a father-son story that I'm like, okay, why is this always the situation
really
where
fathers and sons?
Yeah, where it's like the father I never knew, I want to be exactly like him. But okay. But like in the first volume, Gon goes and he's like traveling to get to the place where he can start like his testing to become a hunter, and it's like this ship that they're all on, and they're going through a big storm and everything, and he's meeting the other people that are also trying to like get to the hunter test, the exam, and they figure out like, oh, they're actually like this, there's people that are bailing on the ship. They're like, this is too much to try and go through this to get there. And they figure out like the captain of the ship is actually like one of their examiners, and he's like, some of you have already failed because you left at this point. And there's just kind of a lot of humor in this, honestly, even though like really strange and scary things are happening to them. There's a lot of humor in it because throughout this volume they have to go through all this stuff, and it's just like, okay, but some of you left too soon. You should have tried to risk your lives a little more because this was part of the test.
How dare you not know?
Well, then in the second one, things get he starts to make alliances with like friends. I wouldn't necessarily call them friends, but like other people that are also trying to become hunters. And there's a huge group of them now that are working on this exam, and they have to, for most of the second volume, they're like following their exam leader. Like this exam is just to follow him, and they have to like keep a really steady pace, and they're going through all these like really grueling places that are taking a lot out of them and everything, and they have to just keep up. And it's like longer than a marathon, the worst amount of things you can actually imagine, I guess. And so they're going through all these tests and everything, and the same type of things are happening where there's like kind of the ridiculous situations where it's just like, and now you've actually passed because you have chosen correctly. But I really like this one so far. I need to get my hands on a couple more volumes because the first 2, not a ton has happened. Just some exams, but I've heard that it gets pretty deep. I would believe it was Gege, our listener. They reached out to me and they're like, this actually gets pretty deep farther on, and deals with some kind of rough stuff in terms of like the relationships involved and everything. So I'm curious to get into this a little further because so far it's just like pretty fun and cute, and I dig some of the manga that digs into like, oh, this is actually a traumatic experience that we're trying to work through. Like, this is my toxicity coming out. I need the trauma.
Show us trauma.
I need
Uh,
the trauma. So I'm gonna have to get my hands on a couple more volumes of this because I'm at the point now where this has been so long since I read these that I'm like, ooh, I hope I don't start to forget what's happening.
yeah. Well, it does look like it's also an animated series, so that's something you could
Yes.
also look
Yeah, I think
into
there's
if you're.
6 seasons of it on Netflix at the moment
Oh,
that
that's
I
exciting.
probably should watch. That I really want to continue with that I really, really liked was Jujutsu Kaisen. Like that was a really good manga that I started and I just need to like the waitlists on Libby are unreal.
Oh, really?
So I'm just gonna see if I can request paper copies from my local
Okay.
library to get my hands on them. And also, this is just me being like too picky. Like my first go-to with manga and graphic novels, I really like to read them on my tablet because I can like
Mm,
zoom into the art and everything. And I
yeah.
feel like it's such a great medium to like look at individual panels and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. But then number two option is to get the paperback copies of them. But I always go through the library because I am a cheap reader because it's very expensive to buy some of these things. Like at the rate that the speed that I can read them, it's just like it's very expensive. And I'm like, library is my only option with these because I'm willing to it's my brain is stupid where I'm willing to lay down a little money to buy a trilogy that is like 900 pages, but I a manga series that's like 20 volumes, I'm really unwilling to pay like $8 a book. Like,
I'm the same with like romance novels. I have a really hard time buying romance novels, even though I
I also do
love.
not buy
I
romance novels. I
know.
always get them from the library.
And here's the thing, guys, we're not saying don't read them. We're saying
Oh, I read them all
sometimes
the
it's good.
time.
Yeah, it's just good to always support your local library. And I end up
Hmm.
supporting my local library a little bit more when it comes to specifically uh romance novels. Cause I'm like, well,
Hmm.
I enjoy these, but like I usually don't reread them. There's a chance that I'm
Hmm.
not going to reread them, those types of things. So I'm
I also
like,
get a
yeah.
lot of movies from the library too.
Oh yeah, you
That's something
do.
that I've done for a long time, honestly, because I can remember as a kid getting like my mom taking me to the library and getting
Hmm.
like I was really into the James Harriet books and there was this James Harriet like before there like currently there's like a All Creatures Great and Small that's very popular on PBS, but back in the
Okay.
day like there was a All Creatures Great and Small James Harriet series on some BBC channel that
Hmm.
they had made and it was on VHS and I was able to get it through the library and I remember watching that so many times like renewing it and watching it and like falling in love with these British actors who I could not tell you who they are now but I watched that series a lot and I have always kind of got a lot of movies from the library. That's kind of been a thing for me for quite a while.
I used to do that a ton. Like I
Hmm.
was a huge fan of getting movies from the library. People can use that a lot more than they think they can. Like definitely look at
Hmm.
your local library if you don't have access to it. And you and I talk about some limitations when it comes to people who cannot financially
Sure.
get a library card if they don't live in towns and stuff. So we're not saying
Hmm.
libraries are perfect,
No.
but they are a great access for those types of things. And like I remember there was a summer in undergrad where I didn't have internet at the house I was staying at because I had like subletted it from
Hmm.
someone for like $150 for the summer, and I was
Hmm.
like, I can't afford internet. And like I could go to work and like
Yeah.
use internet there if I needed to, or go to a library. And people were like, well, what are you gonna do? And I was like, I'm gonna watch movies from the library. And that's
Sit
what
there
I
and watch
did
a
at
movie.
night. Yeah, like I just rented movies and TV shows. I remember I like watched all of Mad Men
Hmm.
on a tiny like 10-inch
I will
TV.
say, like, libraries are do an excellent job having the random series that
Hmm.
you can't find anywhere. Like Hannah, we have an upcoming episode for TV Tuesday on Dollhouse. I could not
Yes.
find this show anywhere like streaming besides just buying it, and I did not want to buy it. So I
I bought
contacted
it.
my library and they got it for me, and I
And they gave
watched all
her
of them on DVD.
weird looks as they did
I
it,
got
but they
weird
did it.
looks, but they did their job and provided them for me. I will say too, though, like in terms of access, I am one to kind of complain about access to people in like rural communities, especially because it's often hard to get access to local libraries and stuff because you do have to pay or travel to get there. If you have the ability to access the internet, I think there are libraries online that you can not online libraries that you can look up online and you can contact them about getting a card just via the
Hmm.
internet, whether you have to pay or some places you do not have to pay for
Yes.
a library card. I think you can just Google this honestly to
Yeah.
find which libraries have access. And this is a nationwide thing for friends in the US that you
Hmm.
can look up these libraries that you can just fill out a form and they should be able to give you a library card no matter where you're located. And then you can access things online via your tablet or your phone that you can listen to audiobooks or read books or
Hmm.
comics. So that is a great option to look into if you financially do not have the ability to
Yes.
buy a card or are a distance from a library that you can still access these things online. So highly encourage people to look into that. I'm trying to remember if I want to say there's like one in Texas and one in California that I'm remembering seeing on a list at one point that like Anaheim or something like that in California that you can get a library card no matter where you are in the world, I believe,
Well, that's
to
nice.
access these materials online. So look into that, listeners, that libraries are available. If you're able to support your local library, like physically go there, you have access to so many things,
Hmm.
like so many things. Hannah and I are talking about specifically like DVDs that we're checking out and books, but
Oh my
also like
gosh.
she and I check out audiobooks all the time via
Hmm.
Libby and
Yep.
ebooks via Libby.
Hoopla. I use Hoopla so much because
My
it
my
has,
library doesn't offer Hoopla.
I know that stinks. But
Mhm.
Hoopla also has access to like TV series and
Ooh.
like CDs and magazines and more. So like all of these places have a lot of things right at your fingertips. There
And
are ways,
also
yeah.
like my library has this thing where it's so I don't know if anybody does like any like language learning or anything like that, but there is a service available through the library that's similar to Babbel, but it's not Babbel, where you can learn a language and they have all these videos that you can like speak into this service and everything, and it like records you. Obviously, you have to have like a webcam and stuff because it's like you're doing Spanish lessons or whatever language you are trying to learn,
Hmm.
and they're critiquing like the way that you say the sentence, this or that, or you're able to actually communicate with someone. And it's a deeper form of learning on the level of like Babbel or another type of like language learner that requires a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's kind of nice that libraries pay for that and offer that service so then people don't have to like drop $400 on unlimited Babbel.
Right.
So and then you're farther along than just using Duolingo.
Right.
But like things like that are available too. Also
Well,
just like
literally,
printing services and
libraries help people with their tax returns. Like they have so much there for people, and like it is one of the like
I
everyone
mean,
talks
I
about
don't think our
the,
library does that, but
oh, okay,
they offer a
lots.
lot of services for kids and stuff too.
Mm,
In the summer, especially like I know a big thing in our community is that there are free lunches provided at the
ugh,
library,
yeah,
which is very helpful to people in our community. So I
well,
really
and
appreciative of that. But they also do things where they have like things after work
mhm,
hours where which are like resume building things,
yes,
and they and I'm speaking specifically of the library, not my close local library, the next one, the nicer one that I've mentioned going to.
yeah,
They are the one that offer a lot of programs, but they also offer like programs throughout the year, which I thought were great. Like one of their programs that they offer is for young girls, like younger, like I'm thinking like fourth grade to eighth grade, to go and learn about women's hygiene and
oh
birth
wow,
control and things like that. They bring in a nurse once a month to talk to young girls who might have questions, and they offer like free pads and tampons and stuff and like other
that's
hygiene
amazing.
products. And I was like, that's a great program. It's once a month and they have it like an hour and a half that young kids can go and learn about this. And I'm like, that's fantastic that something like this is being offered in the community.
Well, and something like we are all in a post-capitalistic hellscape, especially in America a lot of the time. And a lot of people talk about how they're disappearing third spaces. So like you have home, you have work, and then you have third spaces, which were like typically the mall or bookstores or places where you could
Hmm.
go to spend
Just congregate.
hours. Yeah, and congregate. Like churches are third
Hmm.
spaces. And lots of people do not use a lot of those anymore. And libraries are one of the last, like, most important third spaces for a lot of people, because they're often free and they offer these types of programs for people. And so everyone definitely make sure you're supporting your local library, because like
Yeah.
having a library card is important because it shows that you're supporting it. Like it shows the importance of how a local library, like how much it means to a
And
community.
I know
So,
just like my local library, they offered my closest local library, I should say, they offered a discount on library cards. They did this year and then last year too, where they offered a discount on library cards to out of district patrons.
oh,
So like
nice.
people who do not live in town like me,
Yeah.
and the majority of my area is rural. So it's a
Yeah.
very tiny town. So the amount of people that would be patrons at the library that live in town is probably not a lot,
Right.
because if you consider like how many people are in the population and then how many people actually utilize the library,
Mm-hmm.
probably not a lot. But they offered this discounted library card to out of district patrons, and they got a lot of interest, and a lot of people went and got library cards because they offered them
Mm-hmm.
at a discount.
Yeah.
So then I noticed after they did this the first year that because they had such an increase in patrons, that they started getting better books. They
Mm-hmm.
started getting more books. They now have an updated table in the
Yeah.
library for group use. And now they have updated their chairs in the library so that
Uh,
people can sit there and read. And I've been a patron at this library for quite a while,
yeah.
but since they've done this discounted program for out of district patrons, I'm like, this is really a great thing that they've seen such an increase in people showing an
Mm-hmm.
interest in reading and utilizing the library, that now they're able to contribute back to the people who utilize the library, and they're like, you know what, we'll get some more books now
Right.
that we have enough interest. We'll get this table that the community can use for this, that, or the other.
Well, and it's hard because it's like people getting library cards, like even buying them at a discount, they can use that for resources, but they can also use it to like show like grants why they could use money, why they
I
could
believe
use
that's what
things
they're
like that.
doing,
Yeah.
honestly.
And like that is helpful. So like getting a library card, it may be free for you, but it could mean actual like grant funding
Yep.
for other things that the library often
Hmm.
needs. So it's so important to have. And I love libraries. I think they're amazing. I will
Yes.
say that I recently saw a TikTok that made me rethink how I use audiobooks with the library.
What
um,
was the TikTok?
so it's just a TikTok from a librarian where they said like, "Hey guys, just so you know, like when you get an audiobook from Libby, we only get some X amount of downloads with a book ever. So like you may think that like just renewing it and renewing it and renewing it is okay, but like always like if you don't need it that time, maybe let it lapse and wait
Oh.
until you can read it, because like we have to pay like after so many downloads to keep that book in rotation." So I was like,
Hmm.
oh, that's good to know, because like I did sometimes treat audio
Yeah,
downloads like, oh yeah, I haven't read it yet, I'll just renew it, I'll just
I
renew
was
it.
doing that, honestly.
Yeah, like because you just don't think about it, and they were like, that's
Hmm.
fair, like we're not saying it's wrong all the time, but like it's something that you should probably consider, because like we only
Sure.
get so many downloads and that does cost the library money.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so I was like, "That's really helpful," and I'm really glad she said something, because it like I was a little like I was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Well, I didn't know, so I just won't do it again. It's fine."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I know we've tossed around the idea, but uh I think it would be really cool to have a librarian come on and talk with us in the future, because you and I are library users, but we could always learn so much more. And I
Yeah.
think that it would be great to hear from a librarian who's like in
Yeah.
the thick of it,
Sound off
and
in the
could,
comments if you
yeah,
know someone who would
if
be
anybody
interested to come
knows
on.
someone who would be willing to come on, who you think is, or maybe just a good creator that, like,
Yeah.
because there are library creators on Bookstagram and TikTok,
Yeah.
that if you think that they'd be cool for us to reach out to, let us know,
Yeah.
because we would love to talk to someone like
Uh,
that.
yeah, we're big proponents, so just got
Yes.
off on a wild tangent on a librarian who told Laura that she would enjoy a
Well,
manga.
and that's the thing too. Like that librarian is paying attention to what I'm checking
Yeah.
out, and it kind of makes you feel good too that it's like, oh, they're watching me, they know.
Yeah, they
So,
care.
so you know, these people that work here, they genuinely care about other people in their profession, and
Yeah.
they're, you know, looking out for others and trying to make recommendations, which is great.
Yeah,
I
I
dig that.
agree. So, yeah.
And the other thing that I watched was The Acolyte on Disney Plus, the
Oh.
show that was review bombed before it even came out.
I just can't believe people can like with a straight face be like, you know what? I'm not racist. I just want to review
So
bomb a
let
story.
me talk
Okay.
about this
Yes.
because
Go
I
ahead.
told you about this the other day, Hannah, and it infuriates me,
Yeah.
honestly. So people review bombed this on YouTube initially when they released like the snippet and the trailer, and people were ranting on Twitter and Reddit and who else, what other places that people like
Tickety
to be
tock
racist.
and yeah.
But um anyways, so they were ranting because they were so upset with the casting because the casting in this is very diverse. It's great. There's great casting. We have Amanda Sandberg, who is our lead character in
Hmm.
the show, and I'm trying to think. I'm I know Amanda from The Hunger Games as Rue,
We
and
also know them
also in
from
Bodies, Bodies,
Bodies, Bodies,
Bodies.
Bodies. Yeah.
And there's also so Charlie Bennett is in this, Carrie Ann Moss, Lee Jung Jae is in this. He was in Squid Game. That's
Okay.
what he is most known for. Let's see. Dean Charles Chapman from Game of Thrones, Daphne Keene, Manny Jacinto, who was in Good Place.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
this is very diverse casting. It's not all just white men. However, white men wanted this to be all just white men, apparently, and they're all upset about this casting. So they review bombed the show. They have said very hateful things about Amanda Stenberg. Amanda Stenberg. I'm sorry, I've been saying Amanda's name wrong.
It's hard to I mean, obviously we want to make sure we're getting their name right, but it
Yes,
is Amantla is like not a
Amandla.
usual yeah, Amantla.
Amandla
Mhm.
Stenberg.
Mhm.
So this show is like pre the prequel trilogy,
Okay.
before the prequel trilogy, and
Okay.
it follows the there's like something happening to Jedi masters who are being killed by a
Mhm.
mysterious figure, and what happens is they this one Jedi decides to look into the Jedi decide to look into this to figure out like who's going after their own, and it's the first two episodes have been really good. I thought the acting in it was great. Amanda is awesome. I love Lee Jung Jae. Like
Yeah.
he he learned English
Oh,
for this
wow.
role,
Dang. That's
and he
amazing.
does a fantastic job. You can feel so much heart in his performance. But the way that people are being so incredibly awful about this show is disgusting to me. And then they're like, oh, but it's not about race. We're not racist. Yes, you are, because now the calls have been to replace Amanda Stenberg with Sydney Sweeney, and then they will stop review bombing, apparently.
Beige
And
actress herself. Like
and the way
those two
that people have like gone and they've like photoshopped a picture of Sydney Sweeney into the Princess Leia bikini,
ew.
that's who they want to be in the acolyte. That if they just will fix that, quote unquote, then all will be forgiven, Disney. And it's sickening, and I feel like it's time for Star Wars fans especially to, if you don't like what's being produced, you don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
Tap out if you can't handle anything but white people. It's time for you to stop watching. Go watch something else. Go be mad somewhere else. And this show is awesome so far. So
So I think
too
that
bad
that's
about you.
also incredibly like elucidating about these types of critiques is like anytime there's a show that doesn't center white people, so like it's a white person at the head with a bunch of diverse people behind them, or it's just a bunch of white people, all of a sudden it's like, well, we're just like going woke, or we're just doing this, or we're just doing
Yeah.
this. And it's like,
And that's what a lot of the commentary is that Disney's going woke. Star Wars is going woke. George Lucas would be
so
so
it's
disappointed.
one singular show that does not center white people.
But there's lots of
There's,
white people in it. There's
but there,
still white
okay,
people in it.
there are still white people in it. Star Wars, like TV shows as a whole, mostly are starring white people still.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yep.
So you're mad about one show. It's just one.
One
It's
show
literally one.
has a black star.
So the majority is still with whiteness. You
Yes.
can't stand the thought that they might have been more critical about their analysis with one particular show. And that's what like drives me mad about people who like sometimes critique like publishing right now, where they're like, well, I can't get, like, there's just so many people who want diversity in publishing right now. And it's like, look
Mhm.
at the numbers. The numbers are still the majority white people. Just
Yeah.
because they gave a slightly bigger piece of the pie to diverse people, a
It's
lot of
still
times,
not even making a difference.
and
Like
a lot of
it's
times that
barely
pie
cracking.
slice is still encompassing all people of color, and
Mhm.
the rest is white people.
Yes.
It's not even looking at the fact that like, hey, there's a diaspora of people who are all fighting
Yes.
in that one pie slice, and then white people had to have a couple different people get pushed out of the publishing industry because there was no
Mhm.
longer room for them, because a pie slice was given to the people it was supposed to be given to, and
Yes.
they're
Because
screaming.
they haven't had any food in at all
Yes.
for
And
decades.
they're screaming at the people over a pie slice when there is still an entire freaking pie they could be looking at, and being like,
Yes.
hey, could we have some criticism for the fact that like publishing industry gives all of their money to like the Brandon Sandersons of the world, who are already
Yes.
established people who maybe don't need all of that like advertising funding anymore, or could position it with other newer like diverse voices or different
Yes.
voices. Like, you could be going at the people who have the majority of the power, but instead you want to look at a very tiny slice of pie
Mhm.
and say, it's your fault I'm not in the room with that thing.
Yes.
And it's rude, and it's just disingenuous, and like it just shows like how
And it
bad it
really
is.
just misses the mark, honestly. Like those critiques like that just miss the mark, where it's like, yeah, you thought you were saying something, but you're really just missing the picture here. Like
Yeah.
this you don't understand. Like you don't understand. And I feel like this show is a great example of how finally you have Disney trying to slightly diversify its casting, because like I said,
Likely.
there's still a lot of white actors in this,
Yes.
but people are outraged because this isn't their typical Star Wars, and they just hate it. And it's not about race. It's
Like, if
about
you,
race. It's
yeah, if
about
you,
race.
I'm sorry, you could go watch The Mandalorian. You could go watch Andor. I'm pretty sure Bad Batch has a majority white cast. Boba Fett. Like,
I mean, well, Boba Fett is not a white
okay, fine.
person,
That's all right. Boba Fett is not a white person. I'm sorry, I don't know all about Star Wars, but like a lot of
because
these I'm looking at.
Tamora Morrison,
Oh,
I
okay.
believe, is Pacific Islander, Asian or Pacific Islander, if I'm remembering right.
Perfect. So out of the many shows I just listed, we have one. Oh, yeah,
But you
you're
have
right.
Cassian Andor, who is a person. Well, he's Mexican, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
I
he is
I believe he's
may
white. But
Yeah, I believe he is white too. You can be, just so people
you
know,
can
there's a
be,
difference between ethnicity and race. You can be a
yes.
white person because
But Pedro
technically Pedro
Pascal
Pascal
is
is
in The
white.
Mandalorian.
He's white. His
Yes.
ethnicity is
Hmm.
Latino. I would say similar with Andor, where
Hmm.
if he is Mexican, he is a white man. Like
Sure.
there is a difference between like that people just don't seem to be seeing because they're mad at this one pie
Ye-
slice where there's a
yeah,
whole
like
lot more
Diego
out
Luna, I
there.
would also say is white, but
Yeah.
people can correct me if I'm wrong. But the majority of the Andor cast is white.
Hmm.
The majority of the Mandalorian cast is white, I
Yeah.
believe. The majority of the Obi-Wan Kenobi cast was white, and the
Yeah.
villain was black.
Yeah.
So there's that. There and that character on Obi-Wan Kenobi, that actress received so much hate
Right.
that it was astounding, like
Right.
unreal amounts of hate.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about race. You're lying. It was about
Yeah.
race.
And also,
She
I
did an
think,
excellent job. She was an excellent actress in that show. And the Acolyte criticisms, like, absolutely horrendous and ridiculous because
yeah.
this is a good show. Amanda Stenberg is giving a great performance so far. Great actress. Great actress. And I am disgusted that it's like people who just can't seem to let go of the fact that maybe they just don't like Star Wars anymore,
Yeah.
or that this is just not for them, that they preferred content that came out in the 70s,
Yeah.
that they need to just go back to content that was released in the 70s if that's what they like, and just forget that there's any new content being made. Meanwhile, I'll be here enjoying all this Star Wars content because I like the Star Wars world, and I am not going to jump out of the Star Wars universe because I don't even care if this could have been a super mid show and I'd be excited for it because it's more Star Wars. And it's not a mid show. This is probably going to be a really great show.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I'm going to talk about this show a lot in the coming weeks
Right.
because screw you to all the people who are hating on it so much. My little way to get back at you is to continue to talk about it and how good this show is. The first episode, incredible. The first two episodes, incredible acting performances.
Right.
Lee Jung Jae is fantastic. The people criticizing his accent, screw you. He
Oh,
learned
Jesus.
English for this role, and he has so much heart in his performance. He's an incredible, like, I'm getting so many vibes of like Qui-Gon with this performance, and Liam Neeson from the
Okay.
prequel
Oh, yeah.
trilogy. And I I really just think that he's an incredible actor that we're not giving enough credit to. And
Yeah.
it's gonna be a really cool show. It's kind of like a mystery type. We don't get as much like mystery. It's more like political and action with Star Wars. This is very much a mystery whodunit
Right.
situation, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So, listeners, that was a big rant, and
So, and
it was
also,
a worthy rant, I think.
yeah,
But I'm going to continue to talk about the Acolyte because I think the show is great, and
I actually will probably watch this one. I don't watch that much Star Wars. I will probably watch The
you don't
Acolyte because,
you don't
like,
need to like have any
no,
other background info because it's before the prequels. So
exactly. So I think I'll probably watch this one because I actually really like Amanda Steinberg, or Steinberg. She is non-binary. She goes by she, her,
she
and
they I
they,
believe,
them. Yeah,
yeah.
she, they. And uh they're just a really funny person. I do know that, like, and this is where it kind of gets complicated
And
because
their
people
range really shows in this show too, just in two episodes, and you'll find out once you start watching. But Hannah, I would love you to watch it just because let's talk about it a lot,
yeah,
just
yeah.
to screw the
And,
haters. Like,
like, she is someone who, like, has a lot of humor in a lot of her stuff, and I think that also leads to backlash because I think people want to come at Black women or Black people, especially a non-binary person who does not identify as a woman, but, like, she is femme presenting. They want to
mhm.
come at them with, like, a you have to either be angry or you have to be, like, unbothered, but she's just someone who, like,
Or like
will
absolutely
above it
like
all, like, we
comical, like
rise above.
ridiculous.
Yes, like, and she just kind of fits into different ones where, like, I guess there's something circulating on conservative media where she was, like, on Trevor Noah, and she said, like, well,
Years
white
ago.
people crying actually was the goal
But this
on,
is the
like,
thing, that was about a different project.
yeah, it was about the hate
And
you
people are
give,
take exactly. People are
and
taking it out of context and saying it's about the Acolyte, and
the
they're
hate
getting all
you
mad,
give,
and it's
I'm
not.
sorry, guys, the hate you give was about police brutality.
Yes.
And in the interview clip, she was talking about the fact that, like, it's supposed to make white people have more empathy. And you want to know who watched that and sobbed in the theater? Me, because
You
I'm
want to
a
know
white
who
person.
had more
Like,
empathy after watching and reading The Hate You Give? Me.
yeah. And so, like, there's so many things where, like, I knew that book was really important. I
Hmm.
sobbed throughout that entire movie. And that's the point. It's supposed to show
Yes.
you that there's, like, so much more to this than, like, everything people see, especially white people. And so like people just don't seem to
And
get
this quote,
like
again, to bring this back,
yeah,
was not about the Acolyte, was not about Star
right.
Wars at all. And white men have clipped this and keep saying that it's about this. And they're like, see, Disney was trying to ruin it. Really, Disney, it's not about race. You know what? Just
And
go
also
watch some other thing. Go watch the
wanting
Avengers. Gosh,
wanting to have like a group of people have an emotional reaction um isn't
it's a good thing.
always racist. It's sometimes like, hey, this is supposed to resonate with a certain demographic of people.
Right.
You want to know what they do that with? Advertising. Advertising has certain
Like my
ranges of,
sister telling me she cries at the Prego pasta commercial.
oh my gosh, like it's almost like this entire world is built up on like focus groups. Like it's all focus grouped, guys. So like
Yes.
calm down. It's not the big deal. Sorry, rant over. We can stop talking about this, but we'll
But
also
Hannah,
continue to talk about
please
this.
watch it. And
Yeah,
then
I'll probably watch this one because I don't
you and I
have
can
that
add some
much.
more reviews to this because this show is taking a beating unnecessarily and
You know what I
it's
think some
infuriating that it's
Star
happening.
Wars people need to do? They need to go watch Star Trek because Star Trek is also like very much about like
I don't think they can handle it.
I know because it's about a world that like isn't really built for them often. Like I listen to Trondi Newman, or I'm sorry, it's not Trondi Newman. That's her hashtag. Um Tawny Newsome.
Okay.
That's her. But she is on Star Trek Lower Decks and she talks about like the community of Star Trek and how it's like one of the most healthy and welcoming people in the entire world. And I'm like, yeah,
Star
I'm a
Wars is incredibly unhealthy.
I know. And I'm like, Star Trek. I've been a Trek girly from a young age. So like I have watched most of the next generation of Star Trek. I really enjoy Star Trek. And I'm like, yeah, because it's healthy and it's like about diplomacy and like finding out what like the prime directive is about how you like allow other cultures to exist and be respectful and
Mhm.
be in the place and time they're in. So like listen to that a
Star
little bit.
Wars fandom is so bizarre where it is even a fandom that attacks its own fellow fans, where there have been rounds of times where guys will go online and say that women can't be fans of Star Wars and stuff like that. And it's just like, what do you mean? There's tons of women who love Star Wars. I don't know what you're talking about.
But you
Anyone
love
can
it in a
love
way
this
that's
space
different than
fantasy
mine.
show. Like they the fans often just are attacking themselves, they're attacking the shows, they're attacking any kind of
Yeah.
thing that doesn't fit the narrative of what they wanted, and it's stupid. And
Yeah.
it's probably one of the most toxic
Yeah.
fandoms that exists, and it's one that I like. I'm a part of like a Lord of the Rings group on Reddit, and I'm also part of like a Superstore group on Reddit
Oh,
where people
yeah.
just talk about Superstore. That group is so fun. The Superstore
Yeah.
group is fun, and everybody's nice, and you joke around and everything. The Lord of the Rings group, honestly, pretty fun too. It's not like anybody is like, there are people who get a little bit deep into the lore of it all, which
Right. I mean,
is
everyone
annoying.
does. Like, yeah.
But the Star Wars stuff, this is a fandom that I really try to distance myself from because, especially online,
Yeah.
because people are just so intense about this that it's just
Mhm.
toxic and
Yeah.
rude and hateful, and it's not worth trying to interact with people like this. Like
Yeah.
I will see things on Twitter or on other social medias, people talking about different Star Wars projects, and the most I will do usually is just like,
Mhm.
because if you comment on something, people are so polarized. It's like, well, that's a good way to get somebody to harass you if you
Yeah.
comment saying, I really liked the first episode or whatever. Like, really? You liked the first episode? Really? Like, okay.
Listen, what we're saying is be like the Wheel of Time fans. They all know.
Exactly. Be able to take things with a grain of salt. Good
Right.
God. Oh, Star Wars fans are awful, but
Look, here's the thing. Laura and I love Bridgerton. We can laugh about Bridgerton. Just be able to laugh about the TV shows you love. Like, if you cannot laugh about
just
something you love
they're
dearly,
fiction.
it's you gotta laugh at some
There's
things. There's
lightsabers.
yeah.
It's not real.
But I'm building my own lightsaber, Laura. Sorry.
There's like a
Uh,
giant worm puppet. There's a crime boss. This is
oh my
not real.
gosh.
Quit being so offended.
No, never. You can pry my offense out of my cold dead hands.
Oh. And I also watched the first release of episodes of Perfect Match on Netflix, which brings together all of your favorite reality TV
Oh, all
stars
the
from
ones I've
other
definitely
Netflix
seen.
projects
Got it.
who want to still find love after failing to find love on the other reality shows that they were on.
They're not doing this for likes, Laura. They're
No,
doing it for love.
they're doing it for sponsorships, and that's
Oh,
fine. There's so much drama with these hot, horny people, and like I just can't believe it. My husband and I were watching this. my my husband is very funny to watch these things with because he gets annoyed instantly. I'm surprised that he even sat through watching a couple episodes with me the other day.
yeah.
But he was like he has a lot of commentary, and usually he's not someone to comment on the shows, but he'll be like sitting there watching this show and he's like, "Oh, the things they say are so stupid." And
And you're
he's
like,
like, "They're
yes.
lying to their faces." Because these people are claiming, that they're in this for
Just in it for
love, and
love.
they're in this for love. They're looking for their true perfect match. They don't care about what people think about them anymore, this kind of thing. And also then like immediately before that or immediately after that, then they're like breaking up with somebody because like I really want to pursue things with other people because I am looking for a perfect match. And it's like,
Mm.
yeah, but you just said that that girl is exactly your type and that's why you want to pursue that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So clearly you've become a better person. All right. I'm referencing Harry Jowsey, who,
I
if
totally
anyone
know who
has
that is.
watched Too Hot to Handle or Dancing with the Stars or any kind of Netflix project, you have heard of Harry Jowsey, who has become very popular within like pop culture for unfortunately being kind of just like a goofy guy that sleeps around a lot.
Oh.
Because the whole point of Too Hot to Handle is they get all these really hot young people together and they say that anytime that they like have any kind of sexual encounter or kiss or anything like that, money is taken away from their pot. And Harry Jowsey was on this show, I believe, in the first season, and he and Francesca Farago, I believe is her last name, they immediately had sex because he was like, he just like convinced her that they should have sex. But he is someone who has become kind of famous for not being able to resist.
How old are these people? Like, are they like
Okay, the people in Perfect
22?
Match are around like 24, 25. They
Okay.
look so old because I'm
Oh.
watching this and I said to my husband, like, how are they only 24? They look so much older than me. How do they find reality TV stars? Because they look so old, like so mature.
So
And it's
you're not on TikTok as much. It is a
no.
huge theory that Gen Z is aging far faster than millennials. Like it's a whole thing where like a lot of people have theories that like millennials are aging really slowly because
Is it
like
because of all the layers that we had to wear that we were protecting our skin? Like
we don't know. And
we
like
wore multiple polos,
I
and
have
that
we
is
did
what saved us.
so we don't know. A lot of people are like, well, it's pandemic. A lot of people are like, oh, it's this. I think it could also be style. Like Gen Zers are
Yeah.
like more into the 90s styles and like that has some type of like older feel to it. So they
But
automatically feel
honestly,
older
their
and the way they
faces
do
just look
makeup.
older.
Yeah. And so like it was a joke. There was a TikTok that like went viral where a guy was like, yeah, like Gen Z is just aging faster. That's okay, buddy. And like it went to this girl who was mocking him and she was obviously drunk. Like she was a
Hmm.
Gen Z person who's drunk, and I have many feelings about it because she's a young woman. She was like 24, and I'm like, well, 24-year-olds are stupid, and she was drunk,
Hmm.
And she was like, you're 32-year-old looking ass, and she was like making fun of him for being old, and she's like, you do not look young, da 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 da, and he's like, ma'am, I'm 39. And she obviously looked like she was like 29 and she was 20. Oh, I think she was 22. And he was like,
Uh-huh.
ma'am, you look as old as I do, and you
Yeah.
are 16 years younger than me. And like, it was a very specific thing
Oh
where he's
my
like, I do not mean
gosh.
hate to you. You get to look as old as you want. But like, what I'm telling you is millennials look younger and you did not
They
know
do.
my age. And so like, it is a huge theory that millennials look younger. Now, like, I think millennials have a weird obsession with how young we are. It's in some ways where people are like, I can't age. And I'm like, well, we're 30. Like, it's fine. Like, we're
Hmm.
getting older. It's okay.
I
But
don't know that it necessarily applies to all millennials. I do know people like I went to high school with that I've seen, and I'm like, oh, they're not aging the greatest.
yeah, but
But
like a lot of people are
in
like
general, I think like the
saying in
style
general.
choices
Hmm.
are a big part of it.
Yes.
But I I even see like young kids in high school right now, like
Yeah.
I'm twice their age now, and they dress in such a way that they look old. Like
Yeah.
they look a lot older.
So yeah, it is a theory that Gen Z is aging older than millennials
Interesting.
did, and we look younger. And there are like now people are like, well, because like Gen Zs are wearing uh like they're wearing the socks that our dads wore, like not ankle
Okay.
socks. And they're like, well, you're a millennial because you wear ankle socks. And it's like, okay, fine. I'm 30 and I'm wearing an ankle sock. I think I'll be
Okay.
okay.
Yeah,
Like,
it's fine.
so I just, yeah, it's a very specific thing. But yeah, just so you know, that is a real
I
theory.
I feel like these people like it seems weird to me. Like I've always watched reality TV shows and
Yeah.
been astounded by the way that people like look older than me all the time, and I'm still like in my 30s now
Yeah.
thinking that the people on reality TV shows look older than me when I'm like more than 10 years older than some of
Mm-hmm.
them. Like some of them are like 20 years old and I'm like, okay, well I'm 32 now and these people look so old. How is
Yeah.
this possible? But yeah, Harry Jowsey is an interesting character on this show. He's not a character, he's himself, but
Okay.
he's an
Yeah.
interesting person, and it's a very fine line for me where I'm trying to believe that I want to believe that the things that he's saying about going to therapy and trying to work on himself and being upset about his past actions and wanting to improve and actually seek out healthy relationships, I want to believe those things are true. But when they do a cutaway and he talks about how the first time he saw this other woman, he creamed in his pants. He was so excited. It's hard to believe.
I don't
It's hard to
like
believe.
that. I wish
So
you
when
had told me
I
that.
get the people that are trying to defend him because I want to believe that he's a changed person too. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I want to hope that they can find happiness and all this. But at the same time, his actions on this show, because he's lying. He is lying to some of these women. And also just the
Lying.
things that he's saying and in his cutaways and stuff are not matching up with those things, and it doesn't come off as a joke. They could very well be jokes that he's saying to the producers in the cutaways, but it doesn't it's hard to take the jokes when you know him from previous shows and he actually just kind of has like done things like that match up with those types of jokes,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I he was definitely brought on to this season just for the drama.
Hmm.
His ex Francesca was on the first season for the drama, and now he is here for the drama, and it's working. People are tuning in, and they brought in the perfect woman to play into that drama from the most recent season of Love is Blind, and
Mm.
it's interesting so far. And the what a train wreck these shows are. Just no one will actually find love from this, but it's nice to watch all their drama play out. All these hot people that really want to get together.
Sure. I mean, I'm always one where I'm like, everyone needs something. You need something to do. These people do get what they want out of it in some way or
They get
another.
the money
So,
that they want, and
hmm
they get to maybe sleep with a couple hot people that
yeah.
they are interested in, have seen
And you
online.
know what? If you're a pretty person and that's what you want to do, I guess go forth. At least you're doing it like,
I will say though,
yeah.
I do genuinely believe this is just me being an optimist for once. I do genuinely believe that there are some people who go to these shows with the intention of actually finding love. I do believe that
Okay.
I believe that Love is Blind, I believe that The Bachelor, that these shows do actually have people who have intentions of finding love. Do they get caught up in all of this at some point? Yes.
Yeah.
Do they think that they can still find love throughout it? Sometimes, yes. But and I do think that like the farther some of these shows go, the worse
I
outcomes you
do
get.
think
Like
usually you
earlier
need
on
like
in the shows, you
yes.
have more people with good intentions,
Yeah.
and the farther you get along with like Love is Blind is the example that I'm most comfortable using just because I've watched all the seasons. But I feel like when you started out with the show, there were more people in the first season who genuinely did want to find love.
Yes.
And you're seeing as you go along, fewer and fewer people who seem to be genuine about actually wanting to find a partner. And it's a lot of people who say, oh, yeah, I'd really like to, but they're there for the clout.
Well, and also I just think that like these shows kind of you
They
have to
lend
ramp it up.
themselves to,
Like people aren't going to tune in year after year to see the same thing play out over and over again. So they try to ramp it up. They try
yep,
to instill these things and then it gets hoisted by its own petard where people are like, no, it's no longer real. And
yep.
it's just I think that these types of shows you could probably do like 1 to 2 seasons before you're like, nope, I'm tapping out. I remember
Mm-hmm.
I have not watched that much reality television. I only watched one that I can remember, and it was Joe Millionaire, where it was an average
Okay.
Joe who they convinced women was a millionaire. And so it was very much like, oh, will they actually love him for him or love him for the
Mm-hmm.
money? And at the end of like it went on for 2 seasons because you can't do that. Like they had
Yeah.
filmed the second season before season one had aired, and then they were like, well, this is no longer a realistic show, so we are packing up and leaving. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
about as long as a reality television series should last because you have about two
Yep.
seasons before it gets
There's like
overproduced
60
and fake.
seasons of The Bachelor. And it's like,
Yes.
okay.
And
And
so
we're
like
all like, what? I can't believe these
and
two
Joe
broke up.
Millionaire ended where they gave them $1 million, and the couple ended up not making it because he was a huge schmuck who like spent all of his money on a bunch of stuff that did not matter, and she was like a very
Mm.
good person who like donated it to a food bank.
Oh,
And
that is
so
unfortunate.
and she like when he proposed she was like, well, I had to think about it, but like actually the money was always kind of a huge turnoff for me, so like I'm glad you're, and it was like, okay, well, that was why they didn't last. So
Hmm.
um, but we could also talk about like that's also really messed up where you're like, yeah, let's have them find love on this like huge lie.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
that's like Perfect Match is a show that is generally just for the drama. They're bringing
Hmm.
together the most dramatic of people, the people that have had like big
Yes.
TikTok worthy moments on their respective shows and who have caused a lot of drama on social media, etc. They're bringing them all together if they're single to
Mm,
give them another chance at love. And
yeah.
yeah, it's this show is primarily for the drama. These people will not become
They will not
partners.
find true love here.
No.
No.
So the people that are like they're even when they do the cutaways, they're like, I truly believe I am looking for my perfect match. But no, you're not. You
No, you don't.
but that's
Yeah.
fine. I
Yeah.
still watch it because I like to see the drama play out.
Yeah.
But that's all I've got at the moment, thank God. So Hannah, what have you been reading and watching and or
uh
enjoying?
so I listened to the Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Have you listened to
I
this
own
book?
that, but I haven't read it because I had heard it was kind of a heavy book and I was afraid.
So I think I understand why it's heavy. And I could understand why people who read it feel that way. I would say to me it didn't read as heavy, but like I think it's a personal preference. So it's about this person who is incredibly depressed.
Mhm.
And trigger warnings abound for this for suicide, because at the beginning of the book, I'm not ruining anything by saying this, she does attempt suicide,
Okay.
and she gets transferred to this midnight library where it's like this in between life where she gets to experience all the different lives that she's had. um
Okay.
and like any, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. So like, oh, what if you went right that day instead of left? What life would you be living at this point? And a huge part of it is you read through your book of regrets where everything you regretted is in like one big bound book,
Oh
and
wow.
you can go experience the life where you didn't have that regret. And it's like this book
I love
that
that
is,
concept.
yeah. And so she travels to all these different lifetimes. And I would say it's very similar, which is why I don't know if I felt it was heavy, and I could
Mhm.
understand why others do. Um, but it felt similar to like a different type of a Groundhog Day, or a different type,
Okay.
where like she she is experiencing all these lives over and over and over again, and certain lives are incredibly dissatisfying to her, or she learns like, hey, that was not the right choice and I did make the right choice at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And there are other lives where she feels incredibly satisfied, but she feels cheated in a way because she didn't get to
Sure.
live the rest of it. And like the author does a really good job of layering on those types of things.
Hmm.
Um it's also a very interesting character because she's a character who had a lot of like almosts to it. So it was like, I was almost a rock star, I was almost in the Olympics, I was almost, and like she kind of
Okay.
didn't do any of those things. So she has a lot of regrets to like travel back to and see. And I thought that was a really interesting way to do it. I Part of me was like, I want like a series of this where like there's like a character who wasn't that great in a bunch of different like, and who was like, no, I lived a pretty simple life, and
Hmm.
like and got to still experience those types of things. I thought that would have been really interesting because I do think it's similar to Groundhog Day, where you're like living things over and over and over again until you find the transformation that you were looking for in yourself. And I really liked that. I thought it was really good. I did the audiobook of it. I thought it was a really good audiobook.
Okay.
And it was just really interesting. I really
Who's the narrator for that? Do you know by chance or?
um it's Carrie Mulligan. So
Oh, I was
that's
gonna
why
say
it was
because that's a
wonderful.
very popular book, so I kind of
Um,
figured they would go all out for a narrator.
Yeah, they did. And Carrie Mulligan did a great job. I really liked her narration. I thought it was excellently done. I really liked it. I thought like there were some parts of it that like this is a male author writing about the female
Hmm.
perspective. So there were some moments where I was like, you can feel that you are a boy
Oh
writing for a
boy.
girl.
Yeah.
But overall, like I gave it 4.25. I think like there were slight things where I just wish the book had been a little bit different, which made me stop from loving it. But like talking about it here, I'm like, maybe it was a 5-star read. Like maybe I'm being too harsh on it thinking
It
about it,
sounds
because
like you really liked it.
I did really like this book. So I think I listened to it so fast because I was enjoying it. Like upon
Hmm.
retrospect, I was like, oh yeah, it was fine. And I just like rated it and moved on with my life. But talking about it here on the podcast, I'm like, no, I actually think that was a really good book. Like he had a lot of like, it was good plotting, it was a good mix of characters.
I
Um,
from what I have
yeah.
heard about this author, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that he deals with a lot of like mental illness in his work.
I don't know anything about this author.
Okay.
So you could be incredibly correct from the look of his books. Yes, probably. And so he is very prolific, it looks like. But
Yeah,
yeah, I kind of
a
just
lot of
picked it
work.
up because I had the audiobook come through. I like put it on hold because I was like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. And
I'm glad that you liked it because honestly, that book I have owned that book for several years now. Like
yeah.
I bought it for myself, I believe 3 years ago for Christmas. I got a gift card to our
Oh,
local bookstore for Christmas a few
yeah.
years ago, and it was one of the books that I bought. And then I got home and I heard somebody online talking about how heavy it was, and I was just like, I'm not ready for that. So
Again,
I
I do think
didn't pick it up.
I will say in the book, and slight spoilers, skip 30 seconds, but like full disclosure to make sure people can decide,
Hmm.
full swipe. She was a person who is single, who does not have children. And there are parts of this book that look deeply on what it means to have a child for a person and making that choice and doing those types of
Hmm.
things. So, like, if
Yeah.
that's not right for you, or suicidality is not the right space for you, I could see where this book is very heavy. For
Right.
me personally, it did not feel as heavy, but I don't think like it does look at deep, heavy topics. I just felt it
Yeah.
was done in a way that was more helpful towards the end. So for me, it wasn't as heavy, but I could see where many people would feel that way.
Yeah,
So
I'm personally someone who's dealing with infertility, so
yeah,
and
like
depression, so it hit a little too close just hearing that. So
yes.
that is the main reason I have not picked it up, which was
Yes.
kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, yeah. And
So,
that's why I also said it, where I was like, I could see where, like, if someone came to me and they're like, you're wrong, I would be like, I
but
think it is a very personal experience. Like,
yes,
I am,
specifically towards certain
yes.
types of people where there
Yes.
are like don't know
And
why, but like there are certain books like I love to read about trauma. I just said
Yeah.
it a little while ago. I can read lots of traumatic things, but things specific to my own trauma are very triggering. So,
Yes. And so I was like, no, that would make sense where you might like tap out. For me personally,
yeah,
I'm someone who I don't know if I wanted kids, so I thought it was more interesting in that perspective where I was reading it
sure.
as someone who was like, oh, I am someone who's always been like, I think I would be very good at being a mother, but I don't know if I'd want to be. So I think you could
Sure.
kind of, so I liked reading about like someone's perspective of like, oh, here's this child I have and like here's my experience with it. So like, yeah, I could see where that would
Sure.
be not great for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, listeners, for TMI, but
No, I don't think that's TMI. I think it's helpful context for anyone to hear. So, I really enjoyed that book though. I thought it was really good. I
it's also one of
also
those like I know like you had mentioned that like when I read Crying in H Mart, you're like, I own that book. I may never read
yeah,
it. And The
yeah.
Midnight Library may be that book for me where I own
Yes.
it. It sits on my shelf. I may never read that.
Yeah, exactly. So, uh, and I also know that like I'm someone who I've always been very outspoken. Like I'm an alcoholic. I don't talk about my regrets as regrets. I talk about it as like I'm very sad for the people I've harmed along the way, but I know that I've like come to terms with a lot of who I am. I don't think everyone else is exactly that person. I am a very
Sure.
specific type of person. So like I feel like the way I handle like myself or like even like this book where it's like, oh, these are my list of regrets. I'm like, yeah, I think I have regrets, but I don't think they're big regrets. Like
Hmm.
I think that I'm a very happy person. And like even this weekend I was traveling in Chicago and I was talking to a friend and he was like, so what are your guys' plans? And I was like, oh, I think in 5 years we could move back to Chicago. I think in 5 years I could be a full-time writer. I think in 5 years I could do this, this, or this. And I was like, I don't think in long term anymore because I don't know if that's helpful for me personally. I know I could be a very successful and happy person. And as long as I'm moving towards something that makes me happy and successful, I'm okay. And I think that that is a very unique experience that has come through
Hmm.
a lot of therapy and a lot of like my own personal trauma that 5 years ago I may not have been this person, but
I
it
think people
like
find it
yeah.
very hard to sit in the moment that they're in and be happy in that
Hmm.
moment because we've been told to always be working for something.
Yes.
Like this is why, we talk about millennials having a hard time with rest because
Yes.
we've and I also want to say this is not just a millennial specific
No.
thing, but that in general people have a hard time resting. They have a hard time enjoying like TV shows or
Right.
hobbies because they feel they should always be like, doing the dishes or doing this or
Hmm.
cleaning this or what,
uh
not always cleaning,
no,
but doing
but like
something
yes.
productive, quote unquote, that's not a hobby for fun.
Yes.
And it's hard. And also, in terms of the broader aspect of our lives, we should always be working towards something,
Right.
whether that's our career or to be working towards a new home or this or that
Hmm.
or children or what have you. And it's
Also I'm
hard
medicated, guys.
to just sit.
Like yeah.
Sure, it's
Yeah.
hard to just sit in the moment that you're in and be content and happy with
Yeah.
how far you've come and what you're currently doing and
Yes.
recognize like I'm in a very privileged space at the
Yes.
moment. I'm safe. I
Hmm.
am healthy. I am able to enjoy things and that
Yeah.
I have so much to be thankful for and because we've always just been told to constantly want more.
Yes, exactly. So I think it was a very unique book. I think I'm in a different headspace than a lot of people. And so,
Sure.
like, for me, I was like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. This is great. And for others, I could be like, that would probably be very dark. I am
Yeah.
someone who is medicated and I have a very specific look at regrets. And I think that all of that is okay. But I think the other side is just as okay. So
Hmm.
I also finally finished. It took me a while, not for any reasons,
Vanity
but
Fair.
no, that one's just gonna be there forever. I'm gonna always be
That was
30%
that
in.
was a funny guess though.
No, that was good. I liked it. I finally finished The Eternal Ones by Namana Forna.
Yay.
I really love her books. I feel like I could listen to them every single month and be like, oh, I learned something new each time because I've
Mhm.
only done audiobooks for these books. I've
So
never
the
actually
first
read
two
them.
were excellent. I've seen some kind of mixed things on the third one.
So the third one, it feels like it's just so impressive because
People
Namana,
are a little annoyed with how it wrapped up.
I mean,
And I don't know that people aren't really saying it's I haven't heard any critiques like this is a terrible book. That's not what I'm saying. People
yeah.
are frustrated by the way that it wrapped up, apparently, the series.
I'm not frustrated because honestly, this
Mhm.
is a children's book. At the end of the day,
Yes.
expect a children's book ending, guys. Like,
It's a YA book.
it's a YA book. And I think Namina did exactly what Namina wanted to. And I
Sure.
actually like that. I think that there aren't enough books where I'm like, nope, you know what?
You
If
see the progression and they executed it perfectly.
Yes, and there were ways where I was like, yeah, I would have really loved to see it end this way. As an adult who's looking at it, I'm like, oh, it would be interesting if she played with it in this way. And then I was like, oh, she didn't do that. Okay. And then I just
Mhm.
moved on with my life. Uh, but like I think she had a lot of ground to cover and she
Yeah.
covered it. It is a
This
long
is
book.
an expansive series, honestly. Like
Yes.
a lot to fit into a trilogy.
And it has all the YA tropes that Laura and I talked about. Like it
Mhm.
has a lot of fast moving parts. It has a lot of parts
Mhm.
where I'm like, I was not listening 15 seconds ago and I don't know what's going on now. So I have to
I have
rewind
to
it.
rewind.
And you know, what I do love about this series is like there's a lot about it that is about like choice and free will and
I like that.
finding who you are. And I really think that all of them, like all of the characters in this book are so deep and they have moments of talking to each other
Mhm.
that is very healthy for young adults to read about like, hey, just because we have this partner and it's a different type of relationship, you are my friend, that is just as important. Or just because this person is my best friend, all three of us together are an important unit. I'm like, yes, let's
Mhm.
like teach children these important topics and how to speak to each other maturely. And like Dika is a very deep character, but she is also a very flawed character, and I think that that's also really good, and this book
Yeah.
teaches you a lot about, like, Dega at the beginning of this book is in a lot of physical pain and cannot trust her own body, and I
Mhm.
think that that's also important to teach young girls, and so, like, I just feel like Namina puts a lot of deep discussions in these books
Yeah.
that make them worthwhile. Like, I own these on audio, and I think I could do a reread of these, like, once a year and be like, "No, this is just my
I have
reread book."
the ebooks and I should probably try the audio. It
Yeah,
sounds like they're good.
they're really good. I will say, like, the one thing is the audios, they change narrators between the first and the second one, I think,
Oh.
and I don't love that, but the ones I own, like, I really liked the third one. I thought it was really well done, and so, you know, they're long books, but they're definitely worth the read and worth the
Mhm.
reread, and boy, are I'm just really impressed with how expansive she made the series and how
Namina is
interesting
like
it was.
literally a genius, but incredibly down to earth to the point where it's like, how are you talking to me? Like
I
what?
know. And like everyone, like full disclosure, we've met Namina. Namina's coming back on the podcast.
Yeah,
We really like her. So like,
we're obsessed.
if I'm a little biased on these books and a little bit like, well, and I guess they say the
Honestly,
narrative
I
is the
don't think you're
same.
that biased because I these are critically acclaimed books,
Yeah.
so
Okay, they say that they were the same narrator, so maybe I'm just thinking wrong, but
oh.
like so that's on me. But like these are critically acclaimed books. She does a lot and like I just think it's really impressive that like Namina is someone who really trusts readers a lot,
Mhm.
especially young readers, and she takes them seriously and that is difficult. So
And
everyone
I
go
also
read these
think that
books.
a lot of this is I don't know that Namina tries to force a narrative
No.
in her writing with this series where I don't feel like in a lot of books, you know, you read it and you're like, oh, so religion is the bad guy, or so and so is the government's the bad guy, or what have you. I feel like this series is a unique one in that you find out that there's no true bad guy. There's a lot of different bad guys,
Mhm.
and you're also dealing with a protagonist who's trying to discover themselves along with the best way forward, and there may not be a
No.
best one way
No.
forward.
And I think like if you're going to look at anything as like quote unquote bad guy, it's like being exclusionary is the bad guy. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, that's a pretty good bad guy.
Yep.
Like if it's like religion's not bad, it's being exclusionary that's bad. It's like, oh, yeah, that's fair.
Hmm.
Like, and so I think it's just very interesting and like it's good to have these types of conversations in these books and
Sure.
there's so much that's covered in them. So everyone go read the
I'm excited to
Deathless
read that one
series. Because I'm probably gonna reread them once a year now because I did it this year because I read
before
them
the
last
interview.
year. Yeah,
Hmm.
and so I prepared myself for the interview last year. And I just remember thinking like There's so much in these books. I could listen to them
Yeah.
like over and over again and still be like,
You
what's
probably
this
pick
one?
up on different things too.
Yeah, and so I think that this will be a series that kind of lives with me for a very long time. So,
Yay. I
but
love those.
and then for watching is just some podcast shows, guys, for some things we have coming up, such as the Blue-Eyed Samurai, which was an
Blue Eye Samurai, Blue Eye
blue
Samurai
Blue Eye Samurai,
on
sorry.
Netflix. Yep.
On Netflix, which was amazing. No Notes, great show,
That's
so good.
probably one of my favorite shows I've watched recently. Like,
I
what
get
a
it.
fantastic show.
It's so good. So yeah,
Not
I
enough
watched
people were
that.
talking about it, so we're like, you know what, we will.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it really soon, guys. A
With
little bit of
Namina.
a with Namina, because we loved her so much in the interview. Laura was like, "Yeah, we're about to be like doing TV show Tuesdays, so if you like wanted to come on, we could do Blue Eye
And she was
Samurai."
like, well, she said
Oh
something
yeah,
about Blue Eye Samurai that she'd been watching that. And so then when we stopped recording, I was immediately like, would you like to come back and talk about Blue Eye Samurai with us? And
she
it's
was like, "Yeah."
happening.
So it's happening. It's great. So I watched that, and then we also have another one coming up, Fallout. So I started that, which is
Yes.
also great and fun and a romp. And then I continue to rewatch Psych. And man, all early 2000 shows are wild, similar to early 2000s books, which leads us right into Dresden talk.
Full moon. Full.
Full
Full.
moon.
A Loup-Garou story.
I was driving around Gold Coast and I said, look at the rolling hills this week.
Okay. Can I point out, Hannah, that I looked up in our last episode, we questioned what the opposite of a werewolf was, and I said it's a wolf were. I Googled it.
Oh
It
my gosh.
is, in fact, a wolf were.
It
It's
is a
the
wolf
opposite.
wear. Also,
So Tara is a wolf were.
Tara is a wolf wear. And funny enough, I was on the full moon Wikipedia page.
Okay.
Tara West, you could click on her as like
And it says wolf
link
were.
leads, and it says she's a wolf wear, and it says lupine stock. I don't know what that means, but yeah,
Something wolf.
and yeah, something wolf related. But she is a wolf wear. Laura is correct,
Guessed
everyone,
that one perfectly.
perfectly. Do we want to talk about Tara and her wild like buffoonery in this book? Because what was she like
You
besides a
know,
wolf
this
wear?
becomes more complicated when we think about the fact that she's a wolf where it's like
Yeah,
she's an animal, and then the fact that the way that she's portrayed so sexually in this
yeah,
seems ickier when
yes.
it's like, oh, but she's an
Which
animal, so we feel okay about the sexualization of her.
I don't like that.
But did you pick up on that as well? Like,
Yes, yes.
where it's like, okay, but it's fine because she's an animal. So we can watch her dance naked in the
So
rain.
of course
Okay?
she isn't bothered by the fact that she's naked. It's everyone
She's
else who's the
naked in the
problem.
wilderness all the time.
It's similar to like we are coming out with a Dollhouse episode, and a huge portion of the Dollhouse is that like in a homeostasis, these people who are like in a weird like area shouldn't feel sexually about each other, so they
Mm-hmm.
have like a communal shower, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
that is an interesting topic. We as a viewer know that Americans who are watching this television show do not feel that way, so it is
Yes.
for the titillation of someone.
Yes.
And that's kind of how I feel about Tara, where I'm like, yeah, I think it could be very interesting that she is a person technically who feels very at home being naked, doesn't care because she was a wolf or is a
Mm-hmm.
wolf. But the people who are watching her are all sexualizing her. And so when she is naked, the reader is sexualizing her as well. And so it's not
Mm-hmm.
commenting on it the way I think it's supposed to. It's just kind of horny.
Well, exactly. And I just don't like the connotations that when we find out that she is not in fact a werewolf but a wolf were, that it's
Yeah.
like it's almost like we're excusing that because she's an animal and not worthy of
Yeah.
respect.
Yeah. I don't
I don't like that, not
I don't
at
like it
all.
either.
There's a lot to unpack there, honestly. A
Yeah.
lot happens with Tara that is strange. Just
Mhm.
like way that she's even like brought into this story is a little confusing, really, because
She
you
just
don't
shows up.
understand. Yeah, she just shows up. You don't understand like what the connection is to McFinn necessarily. We thought that they were in a relationship, but
But
that's
also he
left a
calls her
little
a
unsure.
bitch. Like,
Yeah, that's a little unsure as well. So I don't know. It's confusing to try and put the pieces together when she gets there, but then she's also like kind of a leader for this group of alphas, which
but also do
okay,
they need her because she leaves at the end of the book and they seem
right.
fine?
I don't understand. It doesn't make sense really. So yeah, I and
I
then
do
just
think the
all her
best,
interactions with Dresden, she's often getting him out of situations. She's smarter than him. She's saving
yes.
him all the time. He is terrible to her and par for the course. But yeah, and
Well,
then just overly sexualized and some of the situations, the ways that she's getting them out is like, oh, obviously she could only use her body to do this. And it's like, really? Okay. She has
there are
so many
other
other skills
ways.
and she's like obviously an adept fighter too. So
I do think
what?
the best parts of Tara are similar to the ones you brought up in like the previous episodes where you talk about the fact that she's like, hey, like wolves don't kill for pleasure. We kill for
No,
necessity. Humans kill for
that's a human
pleasure.
thing.
And so I do think that there are times where she's trying to comment on like the animalistic tendencies that humans put on other beings when really they're the problems, where it's like,
Hmm.
hey, you guys are the problems because like I can distract you with my naked body. That's so stupid. Like
Hmm.
wolves would never. And I'm like, okay, that is interesting to think about. But
Hmm.
it's still told from like this 24-year-old male perspective where he's just like, hubba hubba, I'm distracted. I'm part of the
Her
problem.
lovely breasts.
And then he doesn't have like a moment afterwards where he's thinking through what she just said and the
Yeah.
implications for how he is in that situation, which is actually where the interesting part would happen. Where, like,
Yep.
even earlier in this episode, Laura and I were talking about the hate you give, and we're both like, well, we did react the way we were supposed to react
Yep.
as white people. We are part of the problem in some of these
Hmm.
areas, and that's why we have to think these through. You need the perspective, and it feels like we kind of rush past that a lot of the
Right.
time. So
Yeah.
Tara's not the problem. Harry Dresden is always
Dresden's
the problem.
always the problem.
It's me. Hi.
He
Yeah.
really always is the problem.
Except when it's Karen being
No,
hysterical,
he's
I
the
guess.
problem with Karen too. What are you saying, Hannah? He's the problem there.
Except I don't love that because, like, again, he is the protagonist. We say this a lot, and he's also 24, so I get it. But like
But
the way
how
he
often can we
tells
like
us
I
that
don't know.
Karen is fully capable, and then the only thing she seems to be capable of is screaming at him that he's guilty and that he is under arrest. Like,
But it doesn't add up because
no.
he goes on multiple rants throughout this book talking about how qualified Karen is and what a great job she does for Chicago and how the city is safer because of her.
But it's
But then
safer because
she
she believes in Harry.
yes, because
Like,
she hires Harry. The Chicago's safer because Karen Murphy has the foresight to hire Harry Dresden. That's all that we learn, basically. And Dresden is just like so has such an inflated ego that he's like, oh, that's why we're safe because of me, but also because Karen Murphy hires me. That's why we're safe.
yes.
But Karen Murphy's actions throughout this are just frustrating
Baffling. Because, like,
because
honestly,
she
she
just
knows
spends
something.
most of it just questioning Harry, wondering if he's going to backstab her, getting mad at him, unnecessarily following him or trying to arrest him without like enough reason. And then when Dresden even will just, like have internal thoughts or whatever and be like, well, she had a point there because I did just lie to her. First of all, Harry, you do lie to her all the time because you say I'll trust you and tell you information and then you immediately don't. But
Yeah.
also it almost seems condescending to me.
He's incredibly condescending of Karen. Like,
Yes.
he is one step away from,
When he's
like,
like,
she
I
looks
get
up to
it.
me.
I get why you're mad at me, Karen. It's okay. And I'm just like, shut
I
up.
forgive you, even though I'm doing exactly what you told me not
I'm
to.
trying
Like,
to protect you, my dear. Ugh.
and, and that's the thing is like, I do think a lot of people say like, oh, he is a misogynist. He is these things. Like that's part of what he is. And it's like, okay, but he's also supposed to be this amazing detective and he can't seem to detect why Murphy is mad at him.
Can't seem to detect.
Like,
You could have just
well,
left it right there. I can't seem to detect.
is anyone actually good at their jobs though? Because it's like, here's the
No.
thing. I read this book and immediately I was like, well, Ben seems bad because she tried to fire her weapon. And I do
Yeah.
understand that this was the early 2000s and we weren't as like deeply entrenched in like propaganda where we're like, well,
Mhm.
people are supposed to know this, 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 and this now. And I get that. But she discharged her weapon at a cop. This isn't the Wild
Yeah.
West. Like, that's so inappropriate. That is like,
That's a
and then,
moment where doesn't Dresden say like crazy bitch? And I think
yeah,
you and I were both like, yeah,
yeah,
that
that is
that maybe
crazy.
was an okay
Well,
reaction.
and again, like Murphy isn't like, this is incredibly fishy. She's like, let's not rock the boat. We want to be investigating here. So we have to make them happy. And I'm like, no, that's when you're like, I actually
No,
think something's up with these people. You're not supposed to discharge your weapon.
like I
Like,
think it's time for an internal investigation on you.
yeah. And it just seems like Karen is, we're told so much about her, and then we see none of it because she seems a little incompetent when it comes
It,
down to it.
more than a little incompetent, honestly.
Yeah, I don't get the appeal of Karen so far. Uh I have a lot of questions about like why she's
Token
supposed
woman in the token effective woman.
if she just if she just trust
Have
Dresden
you
more.
noticed though that the way that this series has been so far, that the only male friend that Dresden has is Bob the Skull, red flag.
I mean, technically
And
McFinn
oh,
or yeah, Mac is supposed to be a friend, I guess, quote unquote.
Mac who?
His the bartender.
Oh my gosh, that doesn't even count. So if
Harry
I
thinks
have
it
to ask
does.
Mac who, he hasn't been on the page enough. Harry just
Look,
randomly goes to that bar for a drink and some food.
he borrowed Mac's car in the last book, Laura. They're
It's
best
not
buds.
enough. He's got his own Blue Beetle to drive around.
Yeah, we didn't hear enough about the Blue Beetle this time around,
You know what? I was
honestly.
fine with that.
Laura
We don't
says,
need to
no,
hear that
thank
much.
you.
But I've noticed though, so far, you probably picked up on this, but
Oh,
the
Harry has
people who are
zero friends.
closest to him are women.
Yes, that
Because
is true.
anytime a man gets within his periphery, immediate interference because they're competing because Dresden is stronger, taller, hotter, more more of
Faster,
a
stronger.
yeah,
That don't kill
more of a
me.
wizard.
Can
He's
only make me stronger.
better detective, like all the things. He
Yeah.
buys more flowers for women. He
Harry
has
makes
more
you work
sex. Like I
harder, faster, stronger. Okay. It's Harry.
yeah. So it's like it's almost like the terrible trope that I hate, because whenever any people of the same sex are around each other, they're like immediately in opposition because
I
of Harry. Because that happens with some of the women too, where it's like we have to assume in this book that Tara and Susan would immediately hate each other because Harry finds both of them hot.
That
So
is the problem is like, well, I guess at least it's equal opportunity because a lot of times it's usually just women who are in
yeah.
competition because men are like, men are just so chill. We never fight with each
But not a
other. It's
pass
really
here. This is
women.
not a pass.
This isn't a pass. This is saying like at least he's equal opportunity, but
At
it's
least
not a
he's doing it to
pass.
men too, but it's still annoying both ways.
Yes, like it's not appropriate because and also this book falls into one of the most annoying tropes I've ever seen, which is again like I do not exist outside of my job.
Yep.
What do you mean?
He has
I
comic
exist.
books. Don't ask.
Don't ask. Like you have to have time off where like you go see people. Like I don't understand books where people do not have friends. And they're like I just don't, and this was
I
also a
mean, I
very
can understand not having friends. What I can't understand is that he devotes so much of his life to work, honestly. Like, and I get that that's the point of the books. We're not getting all the backstory, I guess. But I, if we're going down this road of like, he doesn't make sense, it's like because he's devoting literally his entire life when not he's almost dead and he's still working to
He is
fight these freaking werewolves. He's got multiple gunshot wounds
oh
and
my
he's
gosh.
lost so much blood and he's like, I'm
Over
still fighting you.
over on the Discord, one of our people who listened to us pointed out that this is just Die Hard with werewolves because it's just like I'm still going. And that is such an apt description
It's
of
so
this book
true.
because he just keeps going and he will never give up, even though he is bleeding out on
Yeah, he
every
has no
floor he
blood
walks
left.
into.
He
Yeah.
was actually dead. But yeah, I
So
think that
strange.
it does become, and I get it that a lot of times in fiction we as readers want to have a little too much like behind the scenes info when it comes to like
Yes.
we need to know like how could they be wearing that or how could
Right.
they never eat or nobody went to the bathroom and it's been a week.
Didn't anyone have to go number 2 on this page? Like,
Right, like please quit eating cheese, like, but I I do think there has to be some kind of context, either like
yes.
in an exposition dump to kind of give us a little background as to like what he does or
Yes.
something like that, because this is very hard to believe that he's just constantly going from one case to the next, bleeding out and somehow getting a blood transfusion somewhere to continue to continue on.
And like we're 3 books away from Dresden looking at Kieran and being like, you're my best friend, right? That's like you two should not be best friends. You two are not good for each other.
Here's the
Stay
thing.
far away from each
There's people
other.
listening to this podcast right now that have read all the Dresden Files. They're going to be laughing at me, I'm sure, because I'm so afraid that Dresden and Murphy are going
Oh,
to
they're
end up
definitely going to have
their
sex at
end game,
least.
that their end game.
I
I'm
mean,
worried about that. And there's people listening right now. They're like, they already have, they've already been married, and I'm like, no.
I don't know if they've been married, but they've definitely had sex at least 3 times, and it's hinted at that they're going to be together forever, but they broke up because they just can't be together. Because that was also another 2000s move where it's like Stephanie Plum coded, where it's like, I can't decide between these 2 men, and I'll just keep bouncing back from them forever. And it's like, okay, sure. But at some point, you're just a, a woman who has decided to sleep with 2 men, and you guys are in a throuple.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. So it's interesting but confusing how Harry
The
was
Kieran
able to
Murphy
live.
thing
Yeah.
is a hot mess, and I
Yeah.
wish this character has a lot of potential, honestly, and it would be nice to have a competent woman
Yes.
in charge who was doing this and in this role in this book. And I think that's maybe what the thought was, that this is what he created, but it really falls flat when
Yeah.
the actions are not matching up.
And I'm sorry, she's just hysterical all the time in this. Like
Yeah.
she is constantly just screaming at Dresden. So you
Yeah.
can't tell me that she's a fully capable person if
No.
all she does is think that Harry Dresden is the murderer. It's just like the worst game of like dinner
Yeah.
time detective where it's like Harry's the
Yeah.
murderer and it's like no he's not. He's
But
still.
beyond that, she's just being a bad cop too
Yeah.
by not, not holding other police officers like the FBI
Yes.
accountable.
Yes.
So it goes beyond even just her interactions with Dresden, where it's like, does Dresden just excuse her being a bad cop or doing bad things in her job because he also likes to skirt the rules and thinks that's fine and that's what we're supposed to believe? Or is it just what we're getting on the page, just literally like she's just doing a bad job and she's not that effective, even though we're told she really is?
I don't know. Like and I wonder, I mean next book is going to be very much like
What's the next book's title?
Grave Peril. But
Okay,
like the
it's
next book
about
is
zombies.
obviously going to be a specific ratchet up because this book went so hard on the gore where like the next book a ton of people were murdered in this book. So
Mm-hmm. It
Karen's
was
going to be
violent.
not trustworthy because she just lost her partner. She just lost like almost
Mm-hmm.
everyone on the force but her because she was protected by plot armor.
And
Like
there's a lot of problems now, I'm sure, with like this FBI thing being unveiled and everything.
or
So
maybe they
big
just
shakeup.
never it could also be that they never really talk about it again. They're
They
like,
just
or like,
completely brush past it.
we had a really weird time last year when
Dresden, we hired you back, but we had a couple issues last year, but we totally forgot about them.
yeah, like it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. So I could see it going that way as well, but I don't know. Murphy confuses me. I'm
Yes.
so confused by her. And then like again, what's the Susan?
Susan, does Susan have a personality? We know that Susan loves to be naked in coats that she gives to Harry.
So the
Okay.
thing is,
We also know that Susan may be towing the line of consent with someone who is in and out of consciousness, maybe. I'm unsure where we landed on that.
I think we're not supposed to think that, but also it doesn't look good.
It doesn't look
So
good.
no. I
And Susan also apparently has technology at her fingertips to
she
record
apparently has an
the wild
iPhone.
events that were happening at the end of this and then submits them to WGN
It's
to save
2002
everyone.
and she has an iPhone. So she's ahead of her time. I mean, Susan is obviously like, as I think about it, this is an early 2000s book. She is obviously Lois Lane coded, but a little
Mhm.
bit wackier because no
I was
one's
thinking more
supposed to
Spider-Man
believe
stuff because we get that literal Spider-Man quote with
with
great
great
power
power
comes
comes
great
great response.
responsibility.
I think she's probably Lois Lane because this is also around the time of like the Clark and Lois like
Fair.
fervor that swept America. And
Oh,
she's
did
supposed to be
it? I
like,
missed that.
well, because that you probably didn't watch Lois and Clark, which I did growing up.
No, I did not.
Um, so
Superman is really out of my radar
that's
at the
fine.
moment.
He's my favorite superhero. So
Okay.
it's what a basic choice. I know it's everyone's always like, really? That's the one you pick? I'm like, it's him or Rogue. So I like a tortured soul who's like, I'm almost
Okay.
better than everyone, but also I'm alone. And I'm like,
I've
yeah, that
watched zero Superman things.
that's fine. I watched a lot of Smallville growing up, and Clark Kent was very attractive. So
Yeah.
that was my perfect band for a really long time. So that's probably where I got my Superman love. I
Yeah, and you
am
also like the
toxic.
other uh
Yeah, Henry Cavill.
Superman, Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't
So
remember his name for
like
a second.
I just really like men with dark hair and blue eyes. Go figure.
A little
But
curly
like
Q.
yes, that's the most important part. Thank you.
Yes.
Um So she's Lois Lane coded, where it's like she's hard headed, she's a go getter, and she's obsessed with the protagonist. And it's like, okay, but like, what else about her? Like, she loves her
What
job.
else
That's
is
about
there?
it. Yeah, that's
What else is there
what else is there?
to have? Like, what else could she want? She wants Harry,
She wants Harry
and
and
he
his love
is a little
potion.
unsure if he wants to settle down.
Oh my! I mean, he's 24. That's fine. Like they can
It
be
just make me
24.
made me laugh so much when like she's kind of like, I don't want you to go, and I kind of want to like pursue a relationship. And he's like, wow, that's too much. Give me that naked coat, and I'm gonna go die
The
of my
naked
wounds.
coat. Oh my gosh, the naked coat. But like, I don't know. She's dating a fuck boy. It happens.
I wouldn't
I
even really consider him a fuckboy. I
I
don't.
mean, technically that is what that is. Like he lets her come over, he lets her send him flowers and pizza,
Okay, I
and
guess.
he hangs
I
out
guess
with
when
her
you
a
spell it
lot.
out, I think
And
that. But
then she's
if I
like,
hadn't
"Hey,
thought about it
we
too much,
seem to be around each other a lot and like spending time together. What do you think about a relationship?" And he's like, "You're great.
that's
It's
fair.
just
Yeah,
I live a dangerous life, Susan."
it's for your own protection, but we can't be in a relationship.
But you can still send me pizza.
We can still have sex and meet up frequently.
And you can come pick me up when I'm in
You
an
can,
area naked with another
yeah,
woman. Like, yeah, that's
you
fine.
can be at my beck and call and also
Yeah.
feed me, but
That's I mean
heal my wounds. But I
and
am
have
not
questionable
joining
sex with me.
into a relationship with you for your own protection.
Yeah, that's what that is, Laura.
I don't know how I missed that.
I don't know how you missed it either.
It's probably because Dresden said at some point, like, I treat women well. And I was like, that's right.
I'm just a little old school where I think men are men and women are women.
And I believe that
Now,
women deserve
go
flowers. I'm
make
an
me
old
a
fashioned kind of
sandwich.
guy. I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy. I believe in treating women right. They should be naked in trench coats and bring me pizza.
As God intended. Yeah, so I feel bad for Susan, poor woman who is going to be obsessed with Dresden until they kill her off,
Forever.
until they fridge her.
Yeah.
And then they bring in another darker, broodier news reporter who's like, I've heard about you and your bad news, and then she ends up
Yeah.
sleeping with them anyways. Um,
Yeah, there's gonna be like an antagonist type that like they
yeah,
don't get along for a while
yeah,
and
and that's
they're
definitely
really at odds.
that's also Spider-Man coded to just be
Hmm.
like, I'm the perfect woman, and then I will be murdered, and I'll bring on
Hmm.
someone else who's a little bit spicier.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, this I don't know.
Susan is weird. The men in the story we've got. Well, I guess there's also Ben, Agent Ben.
Yeah,
That's another woman
who's
who
just humping her superior the entire time.
it's unsure. I'm a little unsure as to what we're supposed to think the like transformation that they have within the FBI Wolfgang is, where it seems to almost kind of want to make you think it's coded in terms of like substance abuse at
Yeah.
times and how they can't control their urges and how it's leading them to have like other things happen to them because that they are thinking about it all the time, and everything,
Okay,
and that it makes them like really horny, that they're unable to control their feelings,
so I
all these things.
so I don't know if this was Butcher's intent, but I do think it's an interesting topic that historically werewolves were coded as people of color. Vampires are white
Hmm.
people, werewolves are people of color. So
Yep, which white
werewolves,
people are vampires.
uh-huh. Werewolves are people who, once a month cannot control their urges. They get
Hmm.
angry, they get abusive, they murder people, they just have
Also
no
women
control.
coded.
Yes. Yes, very much. And so werewolves were always people of color. So I do think that there is something interesting there. And again, I don't know if this is Jim Butcher's intent, but I think it's I'm willing to go deeper into this as an
Yes.
assessment that a lot of times people talk about how white people put on the affect of what they think black people uh like what their stereotypical traits are. So a black scent,
Hmm.
um, rap, quote unquote thug type
Yep.
things, like white people
Drug
are willing,
use.
drug use, they're willing to put on those affects as a white person who has a lot of the protections that they have. I think it's pretty interesting to make the FBI, cops of the federal government attire who are above everything else. When they become werewolves, who are coded as people of color, they have quote unquote uncontrollable urges where they have to be horny, they have to be
Hmm.
violent, they have to want to take down everyone else. When you juxtapose that with an actual wolf wear, Tara, who's incredibly like stoic, pretty reasonable
Hmm.
headed. And she's just like, look, I do what I need to for my pack. I trust these children. I trust these things. And I'm going to tell it to you straight. And so I
Hmm.
think that that is an interesting parallel when you look at her character, who is actually an animal, and again, this is not calling people of color animals. I'm saying like a lot of times, historically speaking, that is the context that a lot of werewolves were put in. So if we're looking at Tara as that person, while understanding that she is a white woman in this story, it's interesting to see that kind of differentiation between the two of these people who are trying to put on the affect of what they think animals are versus what they actually are.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sorry, I had to
So
eat some M&Ms.
no, you're fine. So yeah, I think that that's interesting. And that was something I did want to bring up that we touched on. This is a very white person book. Early
Hmm.
2000s, there's not a
I
person of
don't
color in sight.
know that there are any people of
No.
color in this, but I do think that I agree with what you're saying that even though that all the characters in this
Mhm.
are white people, that a lot of the actions of the werewolves, because of the coding of these creatures, is often like uh,
Stereotypical.
stereotypical.
Mhm.
I do think that we're getting a lot of things like the drug use,
Mhm.
the sexualization, these things like the stereotypes are
Yes.
coming through. And a lot of that comes through in this FBI
Yes.
gang.
And so
And
yeah.
And I think Agent Ben is like the worst of a lot of it.
I don't love that they made the woman the worst of
I know.
it. Like, that sucks
Yep.
pretty badly when you have
Well,
what.
here's the thing. She's often portrayed as the one that's the loose cannon and the one
Mhm.
that's making the mistakes. She's the one that shoots off at people. She's the one that's like raging out, ready to instantly kill people. She's the one that's full of lust.
Yep.
And the other people within their FBI gang are like Denton, who
Yes.
Dresden sees as a rival,
Yep.
who he's an equal match for Dresden
And
because
he's
even though
fighting
he's
it.
older, they're like close to the same height and
Mhm.
build, and he's in good shape, and he's very competent, very smart, and
Mhm.
he's almost as you can tell he's almost as good at his job as Dresden is.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
it's a little too on the nose that
Yes.
Agent Ben is the one that's doing all the things wrong.
Yeah. I
Because we
would
do have
agree.
other characters that could have taken on a little of this on their shoulders, like redheaded guy who looks up to Dresden so much. Harris, he could have
Yeah.
done a few bad things, a few more, couldn't he?
He could have. Like, they could have tried. I don't know why they decided to just be like, nope, you want to know who's the worst? The woman. Because aren't women the worst? Women keep being the worst. So I don't know. It
Yeah.
was interesting. I think sometimes Butcher thinks he's doing something where he's like, well, I'm making it so the woman's the sexual one. Isn't that something? And it's like, I
Yeah, but
don't think it is what you think
he's
it is.
right. That's exactly what
Yeah.
it is, Hannah, where he thinks that he's flipping the narrative, I think, but he's not quite doing that. He's
No.
almost making it worse at times.
Yeah.
And no, no, no.
Yeah. No, no, no. Yeah. I'm trying to think.
The FBI agents, though, like just while we're talking about them, like Harris is the redheaded one with big ears who looks up to Dresden, and we find out is one of the also one of the bad guys, the werewolves with the
Yes.
belt, and he. Of course, he looks up to Dresden because he's 22 and Dresden's 24, and
But he's also trying to
he's a
trick
role
him.
model.
Like, he was the one who was trying to trick him. So I didn't know if he
Mhm.
was actually looking up to Dresden or if that was like he was
Well,
just
and
being really
if
effective at his job.
yeah, and I was gonna say if he's not actually looking up to him, it proves that Harry is not good at his reading of people like he thinks he is.
Harry is the best detective. I do not know what you are talking about,
Yeah,
Laura.
right. What was I saying? Duh. And then the
No
other one
one
of
fights like him. No,
yeah, oh gosh. Uh, the
yeah.
other FBI wolf that is worth noting is, of course, Denton, who, like I said,
Yes.
is supposed to be the best
The
matchup
best
for
one. Yeah.
Dresden. Like he's smart, he's capable, he's good looking, strong for his age, fit for his age. Not quite as tall as Harry, but
And he
we,
notices.
we can't have it all. Like, okay.
I also think it's interesting that, like, it's a weird thing that happens with a lot of books about dirty cops. They're never just dirty, they're always dirty because of something. So,
Yeah.
like,
And
he
that was the
wouldn't have.
thing too. We get this tortured backstory when he finally does a soul gaze with him. And then Dresden even has a moment where he's like, ah, well, it all makes sense, the reason that he turned this direction. But it's fine if he has a reason. Whereas Agent Ben, what a
She's just,
flippin'
what a
weirdo.
bitch. What a bitch. That's like all the women in the story. It's just like, it could be it could be responded to with like the what a bitch line from McFinn, where it's just like, nope. And like, McFinn doesn't even have an identity in this book. Like, he has less of an identity than anyone else. And
Mhm.
it's very weird. Yeah.
McFinn, the entire book, really, we don't get anything from him, just that he's a patsy.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that, like, the situation ends up involving him, honestly.
Yeah.
And you just kind of feel a little pity for him throughout because it just ends bad. And
Yeah.
it really just seemed like we could have written this in a different way almost and not
Yeah.
included this character who just seems to have to be a patsy and die. And
Why did he have to die? Like, it just felt really weird. And
yeah,
like, yeah, I didn't quite understand what his purpose was at the end of the day. But
yeah, it seemed like it could have been more like focused on like the actual packs than it was.
yeah,
And it also like makes you wonder too, like why did they have to stage it this way? I just don't understand it. I like even it once we're kind of like putting the pieces together and learning like, oh, that they're trying to set McFinn up and say that all these violent killings are happening at this time and or make this alpha group look like they're the bad ones while they are getting people off the streets or whatever and still like getting credit for the name. It's like it's too much happening
yeah.
honestly, and it would make
And like his
more
family
sense
was
to cut out one of
cursed.
these things.
Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't
Yeah,
understand. Yeah.
it becomes too complicated, and I think that this is something that Butcher maybe does a little too often is
Yes.
overcomplicate things, and he would be better off not adding in so many of these details because it
Yes.
gets confusing to readers.
I do
But
hope we get less as we go on of the like three different plot points all
yeah,
converging into the same thing.
well, and that's
Like,
what's happening. It's like A, B, and C plot line that all have to mesh together.
and like I don't think you need to like I just read the third Viviana Valentine book, and there were like three different mysteries and they all are helped by one another, but they're not about each other. And I'm like,
Right,
I like that because yeah, you are affected by your job, but you're probably doing different things at different times. It doesn't
right.
mean like all of these have to overlap together. And it does feel like both books we've had like, oh my gosh, it all connects. And it's like, but why
But
did
does it
it
need
connect?
to?
Yeah. It
And I'm
doesn't
not
make
saying he doesn't have to like he if he wants to string in certain characters or something like that. I'm not saying that he can't have a C plot line or
right.
whatever, but do they all have to connect to the one main plot line? Do they all have to connect to a Loup-Garou story? No.
I will say that something I've heard is like, oh, like a lot of people liked the fact that there were different types of werewolves because it's like better world building because it was like, oh, look at the different types of werewolves you could have. And I do think that that's worth saying. Like, I think it's he does a good plot and a good like, hey, here's the background into all of this as like
I think that's
here-
fine.
yeah.
I found it a little ridiculous, some of it, because it's like again, it gets over complicated because when Bob
Yes.
the Skull is doing the exposition dump of all of these things, all these different ones, it becomes a little ridiculous to me. And that's why like I was cackling when we
I,
were
the loop
talking about this
guru.
previously. And then when we get to a Loup-Garou, which we basically
Yes.
just find out is another werewolf, like
Yes.
a more intense werewolf.
More
So
intense
it,
werewolf.
it just gets ridiculous. I get it that people like that we're increasing the world building, but it's just almost too much again, where it just comes off a little ridiculous. Where it's just like Bob the Skull, who is a ridiculous character, is telling us all these things, and is like, well, these are where buffaloes, and there's where this, and there's where that, and all these different animals can be like shapeshifters, and then you've got Loup-Garous, and like, Loup-Garous, what?
I like the way you say loop guru. Guru.
I have to say it ridiculously
Yeah. I do
because
think
it's
like
ridiculous to me.
I do like it when I think about it more of like, oh, I do like that they're interesting. Like, oh, which one are we dealing with? Here's how you have to deal with this one. Here's how you have to fight it. I just wish we had parsed back how many bad guys there were. Like,
Yes,
I don't know why we have Marconi in this book. I actually think you could pull him out
we needed
and
some bait,
yeah, but like you could pull him out and have a
and the story
very
would totally make
effective
sense.
story. And so like you could just have the FBI agents versus and I guess they want it because they like want this other bad guy, but you have McFinn and you have the FBI agents. Keep it there. That's all
Yep.
we needed. And it's
We
still as
didn't need to
effective.
bring in Marconi, honestly. And I don't know. I don't know if this is just a symptom of being a newer writer that he
Yeah.
worried that we would either that readers would either forget about this storyline or that he wouldn't have enough time to develop this series because two books in, maybe he didn't know he was going to get 34
Yeah.
books.
And that's fair.
So he might have been like, I might only get 3 books out of this. I might have to wrap up
I
this
have to
Marconi
bring
thing.
Marconi thing. Yeah.
And
But
then
Marconi
we
still
get
isn't
64
wrapped up.
books and
He's still the bad guy. Like he's
yeah.
still the big bad. So it doesn't make sense because he didn't wrap him up. But
Hmm.
like, so I don't know. I wish there had been a little bit more layering, a little bit more like use the world building. I do like the thought of like Loup-Garou versus Hexenwolf versus, because like the Hexenwolf stuff was interesting where he's like, oh my gosh, it's the belt. They keep going for this thing. But also, like, if you had given a little bit more room by not having all these interconnected stories, we could have sat with that a little bit more and like
Yeah.
seen it on the page really effectively.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I I also I just kind of feel like Marconi is a character in this book that I don't know if he's being used as just another character to actually learn about some of the fantastical things that are happening. So he's a villain that can relate to
Yeah.
Dresden because he has some insight into things that are going on. Because so far, we don't have that many other characters besides just like the guy on the Wizard Council, Morgan, who
Who didn't
uh,
show up in this book.
didn't show up in this
So
book, but Marconi is like another character for Dresden to commiserate with who has some experience in this fantastical world as well as the cop crime world too. So they have some shared experience. I don't know if he's being used as a tool for that
I
or
don't know.
what.
Well, and I guess he is effective for that way, but then like I actually think the other wizard is probably a more effective character for that. Like
Morgan, yeah.
Morgan would have been more helpful because then you don't have to like have like Bob telling him everything. He could like
Yes.
bounce ideas off Morgan, and Morgan's
Yes.
then being used in the way Marconi was, and you probably don't need as much with him
Yep.
because he could also have been there warning Harry that he can't tell Karen stuff because of the White Council stuff. Because like
Yes.
all we have is Harry being like, I can't tell her, I can't tell her, I can't tell her. And like it would
But
have
we
been
don't have
more
reasons
effective,
why.
yeah, to have someone to bounce that stuff off of, and we just didn't
Hmm.
have it at all. So
Right.
yeah, it's interesting the reasoning and the decisions that were made.
Yeah, agreed. I and Marconi's still offering Dresden a job and stuff like that. There's
Just really wants to get him on the payroll, Laura. He's just a
it gives
great
me vibes
employee.
of what's his name from Echo and Daredevil, Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh
That
yeah.
it gives me vibes of that character from
Fair enough.
Marvel, where they want to like keep him in and make him like this big bad that's kind of like
I
he's
mean, Kingpin is a huge villain, but like,
yeah.
yeah,
But if correct me if I'm wrong, but Kingpin is doesn't have like any like fantastical powers necessarily.
in certain versions he does. That's
Okay.
where it like gets complicated because you can pick like all these different ones because he is supposed to be like pretty strong and pretty
Well,
like,
I get the vibe that he's
yeah,
strong from Echo, but
yeah,
I I was kind of seeing him more as like a villain who is just like a real world villain
yeah. And I
type.
think you're
And I feel
supposed
like
to
that's maybe some of what we're supposed to get with Marconi, but at the same time, someone who's got a foot in the fantastical world as well, who can
yeah,
have some of these shared experiences with Dresden, knowing that werewolves exist and they knows about the Wizard Council, and he has a little influence here and there because he's got bad guys that he's worked with, and
yeah,
so that's kind of the vibe that I get from Marconi that he's just a tool at the moment,
yeah. I would agree with that.
kind of like a kingpin type.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like again, we did like this book. Like I thought this book was fun.
Mhm.
I think,
This book was a romp. Like
yeah,
I
it's a
like
good
this book
rot.
more than the first one for
Same.
sure.
I do think this book is better than the first one.
Hmm.
I thought like it was good world building. I am interested to see like where they go with the alphas. Because
I'm not
apparently
interested in that, but
they're
whatever.
here to stay.
They're here forever.
Okay.
Hannah, how did you feel about Harry in general though?
I again I liked him
Because we
more in
haven't
this
talked about
one.
him specifically.
I thought it was really effective to see him like use the dregs of his magic because like you and I have talked about this with other series, how it's always interesting when a character who is pretty powerful gets their wings clipped pretty much, where they can't use as much power as they once had, where they can't like effectively do what makes them great and what they have to rely on after that happens. And I liked seeing him kind of have to go through that. I thought it was really interesting and really effective to listen to and or like read through, and I really liked that he had to kind of be a little bit of a like, let's make it work. I have to do it this way. I have to do it this way. I can't say lupus, lupus, lupus or like
Hmm.
whatever. So I did like that about him. I also like that we're getting a little bit more of a backstory
Yeah.
where he is like talking to himself and that's gonna be weird. And we find out like he did have a love who it obviously didn't end
Elaine.
well. Um and like
That he believes is dead.
yes. And I liked the fact that we saw him like kind of battle with what it means to keep the White Council's secret because he knows he has to, but also like someone died because of it in this book, and lots of people died because he wasn't able to protect them. And I think that's pretty effective storytelling. And I did
Mhm.
like reading about that more. So I like where we're seeing Harry go. And I do think like after our discussion, I was a little bit nicer to him as a 24-year-old man. And when he was being ridiculous, I
Mhm.
was like, he's 24, he's 24, he's 24, you know, and that made more sense. Um, but I'm more interested to see where he goes than I'm actually interested in who Harry is at this moment.
I
What
will
about
say I still feel like I hate Harry Dresden
you?
because he honestly has so many of those qualities that I just hate about certain characters
Yeah.
where it's like even when he's in like the most vulnerable of moments, he turns that into a sarcastic cover up moment. And that's
Yes.
very annoying to me. But I I do appreciate and I hate all the chauvinism. I hate
Yes.
the the ego that he has. Like he's so full of himself. That is
Hmm.
extremely frustrating. I hate the pissing matches that he's always having with other men. That's really frustrating. And so I think when we get all of these moments, it's like very hard to read about Harry
Yeah.
Dresden and to sympathize with him or
That's fair.
empathize with him. But I, on the other side of this token, I will say that I do appreciate the way that Jim Butcher is writing him as a tortured soul.
Yeah.
And I've said this previously, like I would really like to see Butcher write like a more serious, like lit fic or even a horror
Yeah.
that handles mental illness because I think he has the ability to write this. He's a great writer.
Yeah.
But I think that the way that we are given this package in Harry is interesting because he's such a frustrating character to deal with. But
Hmm.
then Butcher does a pretty good job of showing us that he's actually dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of mental illness, and
Yes.
he's masking, covering this up. And I think that that was something that, or is something that I would like to see going forward more of, to see kind of the unraveling of what Dresden is actually like.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this seems just like a costume that he puts on, honestly, that he feels like he has to act a certain way or cover up his true feelings about things because he can't get vulnerable with people.
I would agree.
And I would really like to see him get more vulnerable in the future. And I think that Butcher has the ability to show this because he's definitely giving us glimpses of it.
Yeah, he's definitely trying to make us see like, oh, this is a tortured
He's
soul. This
trying to
is
get us to commiserate with him. It's just
yes.
really difficult. So I I think it's there. I
Yeah.
just and I think that Butcher is enough of a is skilled enough to do this. I think it's just hard for me at the current moment to like bridge this gap of hating so many of these tropes and so many of these things that Harry is doing,
Yeah. I would agree with that.
especially when you're reading this in the year 2024 and this was a early 2000s publish and it suffers from being a product of its time and a lot of tropes and also just when you're reading it right now as a woman too, it's hard to
That
get
is difficult.
your head around some of the chauvinism. Like it
Yeah.
just is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think
But honestly,
yeah.
it is a fun book. I laughed so much. This is the episode that always feels like so much of a downer because we're
Yeah.
trying to make
Honestly, as we
a
keep
big
saying, like
analysis of Loup-Garous and all the things that are happening. And this is not Pride and Prejudice. This is
no.
not something that will be discussed in college courses likely. Like
Again, I'm going to always say like this is the boy version of Nora Roberts' book. Like Nora Roberts does great romance. She does like epic romances that are really good. Even ones that like include like witches and a little bit more of fantasy. She is willing to play with certain things. If we read Nora Roberts books on this podcast, we would die laughing because a
Yeah.
lot of it is silly. And that's fine. You
The
could be a great, excellent writer that is sometimes silly, which is, you're right. These episodes are a downer because we're doing analysis on
mhm.
themes and characters. And sometimes
They're not meant
it's,
to be they're not meant
they're
to
not
be
meant to be
analyzed like this.
analyzed. And so,
Butcher made these to give people an escape, to let people have fun.
yes,
And these are not supposed to be a heavily criticized text the way that
yes.
we do in this episode. So
So we are giggling most of the time. Go listen to our plot episodes. This is like the
we
series, the
have a
first
lot of
series.
fun with these books, honestly. And like even just listening to them by myself and taking notes, I was having so much fun listening
Yes.
to these. Like I'm having a lot of fun reading these books, really. Like they're very fun.
Hmm.
But when I have to think about some of the things that happen, I get frustrated and
Yes.
I cannot let some of the things slide.
Yes. And that's just what happens, guys, when you're trying to analyze a book. But it does get a little bit bogged down when we're like, oh, women are not treated well in this. And they are treated like objects. And
And the
Bob
thing is,
is a
like,
bad friend.
right. And the thing is, like, we have covered other series and we've pointed out women not being treated
Yes.
great, like even like we've loved the Greenbone saga. Women are not always treated in that. And
No.
it seems like in this book it's different
Hmm.
because of the way that it's written, with women being incompetent, women
Hmm.
being an object.
Yep.
It's
It's not
it's
great.
it's not hitting the same marks when we're looking at a piece of work like the Greenbone Saga, which really handles complicated relationships and different trajectories of families and trauma
And is it like a
quite
huge
well.
epic? Yeah. So
And
I'm
then this, which
interested.
is just a Loup-Garou story.
Oh, those damn Loup-Garous. Yeah, I
But
think
it's
that's
it's
well
a
said.
really fun book. You and I
Yes.
both enjoyed this a lot. It's so fun. I'm enjoying. I'm not mad about reading these. I'm
No,
not.
I'm not mad about reading these either. We've been mad about reading some books, guys. So
Yeah, I was mad about a lot of Wheel of Time books. I'm not mad
yes.
about these books so
Yeah.
far.
These are fun. They're romps, and that's good. I think we needed a romp book, but like sometimes you're just like, oh, and I'm tired of reading about women's boobs. So,
Yeah, it gets to be a lot when you're like, what lovely breasts she had. I couldn't look away. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
that was
Well,
Full Moon, a
that's
Loup-Garou story.
a Loup-Garou story. But everyone, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Next,
Hopefully you're still here. This has been a long one.
yeah, you know. Uh
If you made it through all the perfect match stuff and then also listen to me talk about Harry Dresden forever, wow.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
Wow.
impressed. Well, everyone, next week we have a very special episode. It is a bonus
Yay.
episode. We're having Jeff Spate on to discuss Paladin Unbound
And Mystic Reborn a little
and
bit, the sequel.
Mystic Reborn, because I was about 100 pages into Mystic Reborn and I had questions. So please listen to that. We suggest reading Paladin Unbound
Yeah,
before you
there
get
are
into it.
spoilers for Paladin Unbound.
Yes. So please pick that up. Please read Jeff's work and please review them because that is a great way to show support. Jeff is amazing. He's so
Yeah, it was a
kind.
great chat. We
It's a
really
great
loved
chat.
it.
So make sure you're listening to that. And then, the week after, we are getting back into it with Grave Peril. I don't know which chapters. Please look at our website.
I think
Oh,
it's also just like a 12, 12,
12,
12
12,
split
13.
if I'm
Okay.
remember 12, 12, 13 maybe, because I think it's 39 chapters again.
Oh, perfect. So 12, well, 30, that 12, 12, 12 split would be 36 chapters.
Okay, 13. Am I thought it was 39 chapters. Let me look real quick.
Okay.
39 chapters.
And after that, we get back into Grave Peril, chapters 1 through 13. So please be
Yes.
prepared.
Do we think this is a zombie story?
Or another
Ghosts.
vampire story. We could be
Ghosts.
back into vampires or ghosts. So many undead things or dead
Yes.
things. So we will find out when we read it because we haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And then if you would like to follow along, you could always check out owrpod.com. That is our website. It does have our chapter breakdowns as well as our next couple bonus episodes. So if you want to see what's coming to plan ahead, make sure you're doing that.
Mhm.
And you can also follow us at OWWR on all the social platforms. We are everywhere, everyone. So please make sure you are doing that.
Everywhere. Yeah,
And
if
if
you're
you
not
so
finding
choose,
us, there's a problem.
and if you so choose, you understand that we are joking most of the time and we are enjoying these books and you wish to join our Patreon to show us some support, we have $1, $3, $5, and $10 tiers. $5 and $10 gets you bonus episodes throughout the month. So please make sure you're following along for those. We had some great ones where we did a watch along for Madame Web, and we
Yes.
did a discussion on media literacy recently. So, and then
Yeah,
for
that was
June,
fun.
we haven't really decided yet, but we will figure it out and you guys will listen along, I'm sure.
If you
And we
want,
just
I guess.
appreciate everyone for being here every week to
Yeah.
laugh or shake your head in frustration.
Yeah.
But
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much for
much.
listening.
Tell a friend, tell anyone. We appreciate you all. Bye.
Bye.